You know, the most fascinating thing to me about shows like this is that people will still find a couple to root for, even on a show like this. There are no winners in an ultimatum scenario. I know we all love a happily ever after, but it's not a happily ever after if you have to shoehorn it. And if it doesn't even seem happy at all, if it can be destabilized by like one little piece of information. And yes, I'm talking about Caleb and Mariah. So Caleb is very clearly like a disorganized attachment style or whatever. He's like the kind of person that like when he's in the room with you, he's able to be like very present. He's able to make you feel heard. He's able to sort of like provide and hold space for you. But what you quickly come to realize is that even these seemingly thoughtful and emotionally intelligent gestures actually mean nothing to men like this. The only thing that these men are afraid of is experiencing rejection or disapproval or being a disappointment to somebody. Caleb is definitely giving me some kind of mother or father wound, something you can tell he feels like he really has to be a people pleaser. But then he also has this urge to like fight back on that and not feel like he's being controlled or taken advantage of. This person will ruin your life. This is low key one of the most difficult types of relationships to survive and come out the other side of like healed, because it really messes with like your psyche. It messes with how you think people perceive you, and it's very, very, very destabilizing. This man like cried and proposed to her and like wrote this entire letter and read it and like asked her to marry him and just said the most romantic things that you can imagine, and they ended up getting engaged. But then they show up to the reunion, and one little thing that Arya says completely sends them into instability. They have to have it out like very publicly about like, why didn't you tell me that you were following her stories and like liking and responding? And the only thing that he had to say was, well, I watch Zayn's stories too. Even he made that distinction between I watch Zayn's stories. Meanwhile, he knows that Arya is calling him out for actually interacting with her stories and then blocking her and then unblocking her. Again, some people are trying to frame Arya. Like, it is absolutely insane to me the level of misogyny that's displayed these kind of reality TV shows, because people will do anything but just blame a man for his terrible behavior. People are like, well, no, Arya shouldn't have brought this up at the reunion. She's just jealous that they're still together, blah, blah. What is there to be jealous of? This woman gave this man an ultimatum, and like a year later, they're still just engaged, and the wedding is happening 2 years from now. You're talking about you've invested like years, real work with this man, and you've invested like 2 future years of y'all being together and like getting married. At this point, it's very much a sunk cost fallacy. And I'm so glad that Mariah didn't get mad at Arya. I think they even had like an Instagram exchange in which they made it very clear that there's no beef and that they're not going to be pitted against each other over this man. But it broke my heart because Mariah was literally like, I had no idea about this. I had no idea. And so this man is so avoidant and so disorganized. You know, he was doing all this stuff behind her back. Like, the fact that he even had to block her at all is very disturbing. How much were you going and checking up on her profile that you had to block her? Like, were you guys friends? Or was this like you literally creeping, like having to type her name in and then going and creeping on her? Like, what an absolute mess. And I hate this for both Mariah and Arya. I was not expecting people to turn on Arya like that at all, but I shouldn't be surprised. The internalized misogyny is very real, and it's confirmed every time one of these reality series comes out. I couldn't be happier for how detached and done Zayna seems with JR right now. I'm really hoping that's like a permanent thing. I'm hoping that she really meant everything she said on the show about how pathetic he looks to her now and about how much better off she is by herself. I mean, I really don't have much to say other than please do not beg and grovel and try to get back into relationships with these men after you have, you know, basically put them to an ultimatum and they said no. Nothing left for you there. I definitely don't blame Mariah for staying in this relationship with Caleb, because at least there was that proposal, at least what seemed earnest, you know, desire to be with her, to work through things. This man straight up said, I don't want to be with you. Like, I'm not that person that you're looking for and I don't want to be with you. And it sounds like she spent the better part of that year before they had this reunion still trying to see if there was something between them. Now, hard to blame her when like he clearly like moves in across the street from her. He's also sending mixed signals. What always upsets me to see a man, like a terrible, terrible man, be actually honest with a woman and then her take that as like an invitation of, but maybe I can still fix him. And he really did love me once upon a time. Like, no, he love bombed you once upon a time. He love bombed you and then he took advantage of you for the remainder of the time. And that's how come he can act so cold and distant towards you now and not feel a goddamn thing about it. Easy for him, you see that? Because loving and love bombing are very different. Speaking of love bombing, let's talk about Scotty. He really got Arya going for just that one day. And I'm so glad that she backed out of it the very same day. I mean, she definitely seemed hesitant. She definitely seemed like she did not want to be proposed to on that day. It just seemed like she had told Scotty like, hey, we still have a long way to go. And he was like, marry me. But apparently he spent the entire like next year refusing to go to therapy, gaslighting her about it. She apparently went through some very difficult personal things, a death in the family, a miscarriage. Even while she was opening up about that, Scotty just sat there looking annoyed. I just hate this for her. Like, it sounds like she really tried. They like moved in together like he wanted, and he just still did not come through for her. He didn't come through with the therapy. He didn't come through with all the things that he said he was going to work on because he just said those things to manipulate her. That's it. That's all it was. Nick and Sandy, same thing, you know, tried to get back together to work things out. Again, Nick tried to play it off like, oh, well, you know, we tried and it didn't really work. And then she just kind of ghosted me and has been like traveling ever since. And she's like, yeah, because it was an extremely emotionally debilitating experience for me. And you can't control yourself. Like, you drink too much. She had to literally take him to rehab and he's acting like she ghosted him and like stepped out on him. Like, no, you've just exhausted every little bit of goodwill that this woman ever had towards you. That's what you've done. She didn't like leave you or abandon you. Men have this whole like idea that women are leaving them and abandoning them. Meanwhile, he's literally binge drinking and like being abusive, not being a safe person, and she's supposed to be the rehab center for a broken man. No, and I'm really glad that she quit that job because it is a full-time job and you don't have time to focus on yourself, to work on yourself when you are investing all of your energy and then some into making sure that somebody else is able to function on a bare minimum human level. And you're also taking abuse on a daily basis. That's not what a relationship should be like, and I'm so happy that she left. Even if I don't think she's like the best person, I'm still happy for her because she was legitimately being abused in that relationship. Even she herself plays it off so lightly, but what Nick was doing was abuse. Stalking, harassment, texting, the calling, all of that is extremely weird, unsettling, and frankly dangerous behavior. It's an indication that this person is unstable and can fly off the handle easily if you're not careful. We never got to see this couple back, but Dave and Vanessa did stop by, and yeah, they're to nobody's surprise, especially not mine, they're still not engaged. And Vanessa was actually matched up. She was supposed to be Nick's trial wife, and she talked about how horrible that experience was for her, and she talked about how he like lashed out and like took his anger out on her, like took his instability out on her. So then they asked her fiance, like, oh, so is that why you kind of ran off with her? Like, was that part of what made you want to leave? And he was like, no, I didn't even like know about that. I just was kind of done. Like, I just didn't want to do it. Because this man went into this whole experiment with the expectations that all the girlies were going to be all over him and that he had this perception of himself like he was a smooth talker, none of which obviously panned out to be true. He did really poorly. He misread the room. The person that he had at the top of his list for a trial marriage was like, we are literally so incompatible. Like, I don't even like him on a basic level. And he was like surprised to hear that, thinking he was going to come in and be such a playboy and be such a hot ticket. I just know he was disappointed with his dating week results and his ego was hurt and he was just like, let's go, I'm getting the fuck out of here. And she went with him. She still has no ring. And then at the end of the day, before they walked off the set, he also made sure to tell people how bad her farts smell. Just a big fat giant one last neg in front of everybody, probably as revenge for bringing him on the show to begin with. Moral of the story, ladies, is that these men will never change for you. All of these men remained exactly the same before and after the ultimatum. This is the only couple I can't speak to. I don't remember either of their names, but out of the 5 couples that we saw back at the reunion, not a single one of these men started acting different in order to appease their relationship or their partner. These women had to make the choice of, am I just gonna shut the fuck up forever and just deal with this, which 2 of them seemingly have chosen that route, or are we just done? And I'm so thankful that there are women in this experiment that, you know, like Zaina said, she said, this was the best thing that ever happened to me because it showed me your true colors. It showed me how stupid I was being and how crazy everything looks from the side. But the real conclusion at the end of the day is that men will only ever change for themselves. Like, they're not going to change for women. They will say that they will make you promises to the moon and back, but then they will just expect you to settle back down to that tolerable levels of unhappiness, right? There was a Reddit post that really coined this thread. A woman's husband actually said this to her verbatim after she had been asking him to change and change and change for years and he never did, or he would like change for one day or like 30 minutes and then just go back to his baseline. And then she finally served him divorce papers and he was shocked, like on the ground, like screaming, crying, throwing up. And he was like, I just thought that you were okay with this permanent level of unhappiness. Like, I thought that you had come to just tolerate it. And that's what these men expect from you. You are nothing more than an appliance. And they're like, well, sometimes the appliance has to work a little harder and accept the work that's being laid onto the appliance, because that's what the appliance is for. It's there to work. It's there to support. It's there to upkeep. Who cares if the appliance is happy or not? And at the same time, they don't want to let you go. Instead of just breaking up with you, having a clean break, they'll move in across the street. They'll propose to you. They'll move in together with you, but still never go to therapy. They'll cajole you off this show and then still never propose to you. They'll even take you ring shopping and then still never propose to you. So yeah, ladies, please stay safe out there. You need to become as selfish as these men are and only look out for your own interests in the same way that they do. Godspeed, y'all. I love you so much.